Your heart is 3 times the size of what it should be, and if you don't have the operation this year, you're dead. Said Mark, you'd be lucky to play down the park with your friends. That was the first time that I ever cried for football. The stress of what we went through as a team to kind of do the impossible. Football is starting to turn into a game of opinions.
So tell me, who is Mark O'Brien?
Well, basically, Mark O'Brien is a person that moved away from Ireland when he was 15. I used to live in Ballyfermot growing up. Played for Cherry Orchard as I grew up, and I had the opportunity to move away and be a professional footballer. I got to make my debut for Derby when I was 16 years of age. I got Ireland under 16 Player of the Year, and I had a professional football career for 11 years, and sadly I had to retire at the age of 27. And from there on in, it's just been about like finding a new path in my life after football and finding where's right for me, what's right for me, and kind of taking days as I come from the lessons that I've learned through my whole life. But yeah, I'm just, as I would call myself, a typical Irish lad who's just moved away to follow his dreams.
Do you remember the point you realised that you could go pro whenever you're growing up?
Getting to play locally for Cherry Orchard where I lived, I just loved playing football. I didn't want to do anything else. Like I followed kind of in my brother's footsteps as I was growing older, because he was 2 years older than me playing football for Cherry Orchard. So I obviously, as the younger brother, had to play football along with him. And you start getting chosen for your county side and you go and play in the tournament for your Dublin county. I remember at 14, I flew away to Liverpool, Man City, Blackburn and Derby County. And with flying away to all them, like you go over there and you're almost like kind of like it's so brand new and you just look at it and think this is amazing. It's football every single day. Like this is the best feeling and this is the best thing ever. And when I flew over to Liverpool, realised there's a lot of players over there in the academy. So realistically, am I going to get an opportunity of signing for Liverpool and playing there? Probably not, but I loved every minute of it. I remember when I flew to Man City was exactly the same. And then when I went to Blackburn, I flew off to Blackburn 3 or 4 times. And with that, I was probably a week away from signing for Blackburn. And with the opportunity of signing for Blackburn, they flew over to my house. And I remember the Derby scout from Dublin contacted me dad. And with that, he said, would Mark be interested in flying over to Derby? And he said, well, why don't you ask him? And he goes, well, if he's got Liverpool and all these teams after me, he won't want to go to Derby. And he was like, well, ask him. So he asked me and I said, yeah, I'd love to go. And my first time of flying away to Derby they wanted me over for a game. So it was with the under 15s. I flew into Liverpool that morning. They were playing Everton away. So I met up with the team at 10 o'clock, played the game by 12 o'clock. We beat Everton 3-2. I scored the winner. I flew back that night. Like that was my first interaction with the under 15s. So it was after that, the Derby coaches phoned up and they said it to the scout, said, look, we would sign him tomorrow, but we'd love for him to come over for a week's trial to see what he thinks of Derby. So I loved the teammates that I was with. I thought I'd done well for myself. So when I flew away for the week's trial, I remember I stayed in the Diggs house and I was training each day and everything was going really well. And I was just loving it because it was football. It was football every single day. So I had that kind of love for it that I didn't care where it was. I was just happy to be playing. And everyone in Derby made me feel so welcome and made me feel comfortable. And like I said, it was almost the feel of a home from home. Like when you're an Irish lad moving away, like there's no better feeling than home. So when something can feel just as comfortable, it was almost like it was made for me to kind of go there. And I remember while I was training there, it was like the second last day. And I remember the coaches pulled me in and said, Mark, do you realise who you're training with this week? And I was like, is this the team I'll be playing with? And they were like, no, this is our under 18s team. Now I was only 14 at the time. And he goes, and you know what? He said, you've done really, really well. He said, like, you don't stick out. He said, like, you're fitting into that group. And he said, you're the age that you are. So he said, like, I think we would like to sign you. So when I flew back to Ireland, they came over and they spoke about the deal they'd give me, which they offered me a 3-year contract. And with that, I said, yeah, I want to sign for Derby. So I done my junior cert in Dublin. And then after my junior cert, I flew away. I was only 15 when I flew away.
You're 15, 16 in a man's world at this point, and kind of had to grow up almost in a way during that period to be able to sustain that environment.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I think me moving away at the time that I did, regardless of going into the men's environment with the senior team at the age of 16, like me moving away at 15, I could feel like you're not a child anymore. Like you're on your own 2 feet at the age of 15. Now, I know I stayed in a digs house and we have people who overlook the house who are like your guardians, but realistically, like you're making your own bed, you're washing your own clothes, you're doing all these things, and you're starting to almost grow up and pick up these, as you say, habits of being an adult growing up. And I think it done me the world of good. I think football gives you a level of discipline, it gives you a level of kind of understanding to what I think growing up in Dublin probably wouldn't have given me at the time. Like, and I keep saying it like that, but I know I was only 15, but it gave me like a level of discipline in myself to kind of know, yeah, like this is what I want and this is what you need to do and this is how you grow up and this is how you be like an adult type thing. And when I was 16 in the first team environment, I was still a child and it was almost like a speak when spoken to. But football always brought out another side to me. When I was out on a football field, I didn't care whether you were double my age or not. I was talking, I was like giving out information as I would, because that's what football was for me. It was like, I always try and say to people, it was like an alter ego for me. When I'd go out there, I didn't care who you were. Like my voice was going to be organising and telling you, because that was me as a player. Now I'd step off the field and you'd be thinking, who's that fella that just played out there? Because that's not him who's speaking to me now. Like I was a shy kid. But I think Derby handled that really well, and we had really good people in the first team. So like Robbie Savage is a name that sticks out for me, that he was the club captain, but he done really well by me in the times that I had training with the first team. And even on my debut, if I made a good header, if I made a tackle, or if I cleared the ball, he was the first one to come over and be like, well done, well done. And it made you feel as though you were standing 10 foot tall. Like, and it's something as small as that that I look back on and just go, yeah, I did have to grow up, but I had good people around me. And Nigel Clough as a manager was someone who looked after me so well. And as I said, like the next season after that was obviously like a massive turning point in my life. But this was something where that making me debut kind of cemented the whole thing of going, like, whatever I need to do, I'm willing to do. So I already had the mentality in my mind that I was like, no, I know what needs to happen for me. So yeah, I did grow up probably very quickly, but there was a lot more growing up to do the season after.
I want to stay 1 second longer on this part because you mentioned about having that alter ego when you go on the field. And I mean, you had Robbie Savage, who will have mixed opinions about football ability, but he was an incredible leader. And in today's time, leadership is just, it's quite surprising how much of a sought after skill it is right now. And I've read the quotes from your old teammates and people that have been involved with you at clubs, and they all have the same thing, that you were a natural leader and it almost just came easy to you. Was that a trait that you were born with, sorry, or do you think that this experience that we were just talking about maybe brought that out in you because you had to almost be a leader in your own life?
To be honest, I think it was something that I naturally had in me when it was to come with competition and football. Like, I look at it and go, any team that like my Cherry Orchard team in Ireland, when I played for Cherry Orchard, I was captain of Cherry Orchard. And that was through the ages that I played for them. When I then got picked for me Dublin side to go play in a cup that you play down in Limerick called the Kennedy Cup, I got to be captain of the Dublin side. Then when I got chosen for the young Ireland ages, under 16s and different things, I was captain of the under 16s. So like being a captain was just something where I was a vocal person when I played. I was an organizer when I played. I was kind of like, as I say, that kind of voice on a field. But I was always someone that I always enjoyed helping people. Even when I was in school growing up, like I loved helping my classmates. Like I always enjoyed helping people. So I think when you put both of them together, where you enjoy helping someone, but also you also have that kind of side to you where the competitiveness, where you almost try and bring the best out of the person that you're playing with, Like they all just kind of went hand in hand. So I do believe it's something that I grew up being, but I think football is what made me understand it, to know, well, what is a captain? What is needed from a captain? Whereas when you're in Ireland, it's torn up on a Sunday for your Cherry Orchard side and put the armband on and you go up for the coin toss. But when you're over here in the UK, it's like, right, he's the go-to person. He's the middleman between the players and the manager. He's the one who organises things. He's the one that people look upon. He's the one that faces all the adversity if the team aren't performing. Like, he is the person. He's the spokesperson of the changing room. And for me to get the opportunity to be that, like I say, I didn't see it as overbearing or a challenge. It just felt normal to me.
I mean, we're hearing all these stories. You're at such a young age, you're involved in your national team, and you won awards for the national team too. And you're getting your pro debut. You've got people like Nigel Clough and Robbie Savage standings in the game that are backing you and giving you advice and things like that. And it sounds from the outside looking in, someone doesn't know your story, that can't do no wrong. Nothing can mess this up. Tell me about this routine screening that changed everything.
So yeah, the season that I made my debut, obviously flew home to Ireland and everything was great, and you have all the family friends congratulating you on such an achievement. And all I had in my head was, I can't wait to go back over, hit the ground running. And you don't think that it's not, I'm going to be on the trajectory that I was already on. It's just going to keep getting stronger and stronger. And now I'm going to be part of Derby's first team. So I went back for pre-season, and you start pre-season with the academy and you're doing your runs and you're wearing your heart rate monitors and different things. But again, I got to sign my first contract for Derby because I was 16. So you get like your medical screenings, your heart screening, your height and weight, your blood pressures, you get everything done, your joints, your muscles, the lot. And I remember the heart screening day, we were all having to be in. And one by one, we go into the physio room and they close the door and you get given your echocardiogram, you get given your ECG, and then normally you get told, oh no, everything's fine, on you go. And then with my one, it was, I had the echo, and then the doctor walked out of the room, brought the physio back in, they closed the door behind him and they said, Mark, look, we've picked up a small abnormality with your valve. You have something that is called a bicuspid valve, a leak in aortic valve. Now, he said it's something that's very, very minor. He said people can live with this on a daily basis. He said it more than likely won't hinder your football career. You won't need an operation for another 50, 60 years. So it's something to keep an eye on, but you'll be okay. So I just thought, oh, well, that's fine. So I went back out and started training. And then, as I said, pre-season carried on and we're wearing the heart rate monitors. And normally at the end of each week or at the end of each session, our fitness coach would read out the stats of that day, like your maximum heart rate, your average of your heart rate, to see how hard people were working. So when he got to me, my max heart rate, I think, was 227 and my average was 203. So they looked at that and said, Mark, you're either working really hard, but your heart isn't resting. It's kind of staying at the highest end because the average isn't coming down. So they kind of put two and two together with the heart screen and that to kind of put the information together and send it to a specialist to see is this normal. So they sent it to a specialist, and with sending it to the specialist, we had a meeting and we sat down and he said, look, these two could be in correlation with each other, but Mark, look, we're going to send you for an MRI scan, but look, it's nothing to worry about. It's precautionary just to see how the heart is functioning with the way the valve is and obviously with training. So again, headed to get the MRI scan. And I'll never forget, like after the MRI scan, this is when it became a little bit more real. That afterwards they said, look, Mark, your valve is leaking. And on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being nothing, 10 being the most extreme, it's about a 7 or an 8, it's leaking back into your heart. So then that's where we obviously got a little bit more concerned and there was a lot more questions asked. So they sent off that information back to the specialist again. And then the specialist sat down, read everything that he needed to read. He said, Mark, well, look, you're not displaying any symptoms, whereas normally with the symptoms of anything with your heart, it's dizziness, breathlessness, fatigue. Like there's all these different things that come with it. And I didn't have a single symptom. That's why like it felt like such an anomaly. And when we went back to see the specialist, he literally said to me, he was like, Mark, look, we have seen us progress that little bit more, but you won't need another operation for, you won't need an operation for another 20, 30 years. So like, even when I look back at the story, it went from like 60 years, 50 years, 20, 30 years. So it was decreasing. But even then, I always had in my head, I was like, well, in 30 years' time, I'll be 46, or in 20 years' time, I'll be in my 30s. Football will be long gone. I'll be okay. So the specialist said, I'm going to send it to a hospital. I'm going to send it to a surgeon and a specialist in the hospital to get their professional opinion, he said, so we can see what it is. So in that time, phoning home, telling me dad everything, and keeping them updated. And then we got given a date to go to the hospital in the Glenfield Hospital in Leicester. So we ended up going to the hospital. My ma, my dad, and the Derby physio and myself were sitting in this small office. And I'll always remember it that the surgeon came walking in and he sat down in front of us at his desk. He put whatever diary he had down on the desk and he picked up a model heart and he said, Mark, your heart is 3 times the size of what it should be for someone of your age. And if you don't have the operation this year, you're dead. Now, when that got said to me, it almost felt as though you can't be saying this to me. Like, this can't be real. And like the room kind of went quiet. And so he explained what it is. He said, look, he said, you've been a congenital heart defect. He said, you've been given a bicuspid valve. Normally it's 3 cusps to a valve. He said, yours is a bicuspid valve, which means that 2 of your cusps are working and 1 of them isn't. Now, when your heart, he said, is pumping to release the blood, the valve that isn't working is leaking blood back in. So your heart is working twice as hard. And he said, with your heart being a muscle, he said, your heart is expanding. And he said, it will get to a point where he said, you might not feel it now, but he said, you'll get more and more fatigued. He said, you'll wake up one morning. He said, it could be walking up a flight of stairs or brushing your teeth. And he said, your heart will stop. He said, because you're lucky right now that your heart is dealing with the stress that it's under. And you're lucky that your heart is dealing with the severity of what it's needing to do that it's under, because you're fit and playing football. You know, he said, with another person, he said they probably wouldn't have this long. So with him explaining all that, I think I always say, being 16 and naive, I asked him the question, can I still play football? And he looked at me and he said, Mark, you'd be lucky to play down the park with your friends. He said, let alone playing professionally anymore. He said, now to get to a professional standard upholds a level of fitness to there. He said, now whether you get back playing, he said, I don't think it will happen. So they basically said I'd never play again. And as we had the conversation, he explained the certain operations that you can have, which one was you can reverse the valves around from the lung valve to the heart valve. And that means later down the line, you get an operation for the lung valve, but it's your own tissues and all this stuff where it'll be okay for your body. Another one was a pigskin valve, which meant if it takes to your body, it's something that potentially gives you the opportunity of getting back into training to see where it might go. Or I can have a metallic valve, which means you're on blood thinners for the rest of your life and you can't play contact sport. So I remember I spoke to him and I literally said the pigskin valve without even thinking, because the one way I looked at it was I made my debut the season before and I wanted to give myself the best opportunity to get back playing. And I got told when I said that he said, it's not a guarantee. He said that the pigskin valve will take to your tissues. He said we had a gymnast in, a young girl, similar to the age that I was. And he said she had the operation. He said within 18 months, she was back in having the operation again because the valve didn't take to her body. But I also said to him, if this is the best opportunity and that small little glimmer of chance to play football again, I said, I want to do it. So he said it might be a year to a maximum of 5 years that you get to play, but you won't know. You'll just have to take it year by year. So I went in, had the operation in the October of 2009 and went home for 3 months, got back to Derby in the January, and then I got back playing in April time, middle to the end of April. I got back playing the back end of the season for the under 18s, and then I made the first team bench against Cardiff on the last home game of the season. So even for that season to not play any football until the back end of the season was probably one of the most significant seasons that I've ever had. To kind of, it cemented a lot for me that made me think, well, do you know what? It brought an even bigger love for football and much more of an appreciation for football. And everything that I faced along my career always got based back to that moment of saying, well, if I can get back from this, I can get back from that. And even though it was something that I wouldn't want to wish on anybody to go through, it really gave me a certain mentality that really carried me through my career as a person, as a footballer, as a professional, but just as me as a person. It really added a steeliness to me that, to be honest, I hadn't been faced with much adversity before. So to see how I came back from that, there was going to be nothing that was going to stop me after that.
It's so rare someone gets told you have a heart problem that could probably end your career, yet you still stay optimistic that you're going to have a career. Like, it's very rare that it happens. And I found out about something Nicholas Taleb wrote about, which was anti-fragility, which is pretty much if in the moment of bad news, you can reject it with your entire body and brain, it builds almost like a callus against hard times or something like that. And I didn't understand how I could relate it to you until you mentioned, as soon as you were told the news, your first answer was, how do I get back playing football? Which right away, which it's almost funny how instinctively you applied that principle without probably knowing it existed. Like, it's so insane to me that. But can you pinpoint the moment you realised that dream was still alive to play football professionally?
When I came back after the operation in the January, so I spent the 3 months home in Dublin after it, and then once I got back in January, again, it wasn't just down to me with my mentality. It was more about being 16. I had positive influence around me. So I had everybody from the Derby physio to me family, to the doctors, to the fitness coach. Everybody was always reinforcing me with, Mark, when we get you back, and Mark, when you get back, and this is what we're going to do to get you back. Because it was a guess. I look back at it now, it was a guessing game for everyone. Like, a physio can rehab a leg and a calf and a hamstring. How do you rehab a heart? The same with a fitness coach. So they were all having guesswork just as much as anything. But with them, they took it upon themselves to go, okay, it's not about how do you rehab a heart, it's about how do you get somebody fit. You start off slow and you build it up and you build it up and build it up, and let's just keep building it up. We go slow and steady. And I wore heart rate monitors, which were connected to a watch, and you're looking at your heart rate going on jogs in the snow with the fitness coach, and your heart rate gets to a certain level. Okay, we'll walk till it goes back down and then we'll go again. And then we kept on doing that. It was so repetitive, but again, there was never one bit of talk around me to say, Mark, you'll never get back playing. But the one moment that made me realise that I was ahead of the game, that this is possible, was the fact of, at the beginning, I was comparing myself to my teammates who are out training every day. And I was like, I'm nowhere near their fitness. Like, this is never going to happen. But again, the fitness coach, look at Mark, we go again tomorrow and we do it again. And when I had to go back after 6 months back to the hospital for another checkup to see how everything was progressing, I remember they had me in and they done like a small fitness test. So I had to walk on a treadmill and they would turn up the level a little bit, and then they'll turn up the level a little bit more, and they'll keep doing it. But I was jogging a lot further than what I was doing with the walking. So I breezed through the whole thing. And they were like, Mark, you are so far ahead of where you should be. You should be so proud of yourself. So in my mind, when I look at it and said I was sitting comparing myself to people who didn't have to go through it, instead of just focusing on my own task to get me back fit, however that might look, then that's cemented for me. There's a chance here because they're seeing a remarkable change in me fitness and how far ahead that I am, that almost it put a confidence into me to go, yeah, this is going to happen. Like, I started believing it even more then, not just having to hear it from someone else, but I could feel the belief that the dream is actually still alive here. Like, this is possible. So once I got back in, it was straight back out and going, yeah, look at these jogs are going great. And then you just steadily build it up. And then it got to the point where, Mark, you can join back training now. And once I joined back training, it was like literally dropping me back out like it never happened. And I was straight back in. And once there's a ball there to be blocked, I'll block it. Once there's a tackle there to be made, I'll tackle. And if there's a header there to be won, I'll head it. And that's what rightly or wrongly at the time, was the perfect distraction because all I focused on was football. I didn't care about what the actual operation was. I didn't care about the life or death situation, which is crazy to say, but it was all about, okay, it gave me a focus. It gave me something to narrow my mind into. And with the way that I was thinking, once that news came to me from the hospital about how well I was doing, I knew there and then that, look, there's going to be no stopping me now. Like, I will get back playing.
When you did get back playing, I mean, you dropped straight back into where you were. I mean, you just said that you got a bench appearance in the senior team and stuff, but after you did get back, you kind of probably, I would say from the outside looking in, you didn't take the initial trajectory that you thought you would have. You know, you were constantly going high and high and high. And in Derby, you still had an amazing career at Derby. I mean, there's not many people who can say they had a career at any level of football, never mind the career you had at Derby. But you then did kind of start to like, move around different teams and finding your feet and stuff like that. Was there anything different about the standard you could play at or what your body was capable of doing once you did recover? Maybe not fitness wise, but more technical side because you were out of the game for so long.
Do you know what? I think I was always based around as a player for me aggressiveness, being an old school defender where you put your head in where people wouldn't put their feet. Like that was my natural game. And I always am the believer of, look, that is something I don't think you can coach into people, but you can always give someone technical ability. You can work with them every single day. And I think maybe I missed out on a lot of that, I think, due to the fact of missing that year of football and then obviously trying to find your feet again. But again, I think Nigel Clough loved me for the defender that I was. Like, and he always thought that, look, you can teach someone to have a good touch, you can teach someone to pass the ball, but that have that kind of inner steeliness is something where, Mark, you've got that in abundance. But I do believe that when Nigel Clough left Derby at the time, I think when Steve McLaren came in as the manager, it was a completely different style of how to view football and how to play it and playing out from the back and your options. You don't just get it as a defender and you just put it up there and you squeeze your line. All these things, like there was more of a thinking game. It was more of a kind of like get the ball, receive it, be comfortable on the ball. Where's your next pass? All these different things. Again, I'll always hold my hands up. Like I was never the ball playing centre back to what you see nowadays, but I knew I could defend. And when I got to move after I got let go from Derby and then I went to Motherwell, another new experience where it's a whole new team, it's a whole new surrounding, it's a new club, new fan base, new teammates, like everything. But I loved every minute of that. But then that also was a learning curve because, again, one manager brings you in and you do okay by this manager, Stuart McCall, and then he leaves, another manager comes in, and then you're also not so favourable with a new manager. And you start understanding that football is starting to turn into a game of opinions. I ended up leaving Motherwell after a year, and then I ended up signing for Luton Town. Again, one manager brings me in, which is all well and good, and you think, oh no, this is great. It's a big squad, and look, there was unbelievable names in that squad, and to name one is Paddy McCourt. Like, he's the closest thing for me to Lionel Messi I'll ever get to train with. He was just so naturally gifted and such a nice bloke that, as I said, to get to train with something like that each day was amazing to me. And I look at it then and say, right, do okay there. And things were okay. They were up and down, not the best of time at Luton. Another manager comes in at Luton, has a completely different of opinion to me, has a different way of thinking, a different style he wants to play, wants different personnel. And then I find myself, I'm 24 and I'm training with the under 18s, I'm training with the under 16s. They want me out of the club, and that's the politics of football sometimes. And all along the way, there's always those moments of where I've had ACL injuries, I've had microfracture injuries, I've had significant injuries. But again, this is why I always say the open heart surgery was the big significant turning point, that regardless of what the manager's opinion was, where at certain points I can say that I did want to potentially go, I don't need this anymore. Like, this manager's opinion, I've done nothing wrong. And you want to look for all the reasons why. Whereas sometimes I think you look at it now and you think you focus on what you can control. And the only thing you can control is how you turn up each day and how hard you train. He can't judge you on how hard you train, and he can't make you train any less harder. So I looked at it and I thought, well, if I can get back from open heart surgery, this person's opinion isn't going to stop me playing.
Yeah, I couldn't wait to get to this part of the story. If anybody that gets a chance to listen to Google Mark's early career in football up till the age of 16, it's absolutely insane. Like, it's literally a steep hole. And then does kind of come down with all the injuries and, like you said, the opinions, you're butting heads with people. And what happened when you signed for Newport? Because it's almost like they give you a new heart or something, or you came a robot. Like, you just came alive out of nowhere. It's insane to me. What changed?
The whole reason I got to Newport was Dino Marmaria, who was the manager of Southport, got me with a meeting with Graham Wesley. So I met him in a hotel and we were sitting and we were speaking. And he came in and he kind of looks me up and down. He's in his Newport tracksuit and he goes, right, so what can you bring to Newport? And I said, like, look, I can be a defender. He said, look, I'll stop you there. He goes, I don't know much about you. He said, so I do apologise. He said, but I take my assistant's opinion on you very strongly. He said, I listened to him. And he said he really likes you from when he had you at Southport. He said, you're a dedicated defender. And I said, look, I'm a heart on sleeve type person. What you see is what you get. I said, I'll put my head in. I'll win me tackles. I said, I'm a defender. And he goes, right. Well, he'll tell me a little bit about himself. And then all of a sudden said what he was looking to do at Newport, which was, he goes, I need something to change. He said, I'm bringing in 11 new signings. He said, I need something to shake up. We need to get out of the rut that we're in. We want to obviously stay out of relegation. We don't want to be relegated. And he goes, right. Well, how about if we phone your chairman right now and we sort it out now? I was like, right. So phoned the chairman, no answer. So I thought, right, I'm not getting cornered here. Then he goes, actually, do you know what? I'm going to try it again. So we phoned him again. The chairman answered. So then the chairman, after they spoke with each other, the chairman spoke to me on the phone and said, Mark, look, you've got a manager there in League Two that wants you to play. He said, so you can either take the 1 month pay up that we're going to offer you, or you can come back here and not play football for 6 months. Now, he said, it's your choice. So I said, is that all that you can do? I said, he goes, Mark, they're your options. Now, he said, I'm not doing it out of badness, but he said, it's business. And I was like, right. So I spoke with Graham Wesley and I said, look, they're only willing to give me a month's pay up. He goes, right. He said, here's the deal. And this is the type of manager that he was. He goes, here's the deal for you. He said, we stay out of relegation. So from now in January till the beginning of May, last game of the season, he said, I'll give you a 5-month deal. He said, now he said, I'll give you the same money that you're on at Luton, so you won't be missing out on anything. But he said, I will, if we stay out of relegation, there's another 2-year deal for you. If we get relegated, he said, you don't get any off-season payment and your time here at Newport's done. And put his hand out like that and just goes, deal. That was on a Tuesday. I got all my stuff together. I travelled down to Newport on the Thursday and then I trained on the Friday and we played on the Saturday. So it was kind of a massive turnaround to go to. I didn't have nearly 10 months of not playing with the odd game in between. And I'd say that's 2 games in the space of 10 months. And then you go and you're straight into a League Two fixture. Now, we got beaten 3-0 away at Stevenage. But to finally find myself back at Newport with a manager that had a strong opinion of me, that really liked me, with a club that I could almost kind of say fitted the DNA of me as a player, which was hard, grit, determination, a bit of heart, fight, all of the above. And with the players that were recruited, we almost just took it as a task. And then again, I had that little bit of a doubt moment where when Graham Wesley ended up getting sacked, I thought, here we go again, another manager. And through all of my stories, it seems like I'm the bad omen that I'm getting every last manager sacked. But a manager changes. So when Michael Flynn took it over, we had 12 games to go. We were 11 points from safety. And I think this was in the beginning of March with 12 games to go. So we needed basically a miracle. And out of those 12 games, I think we won 7 or we won 8 of them. And with that, we took it all the way down to the last game of the season. We got all the way down to Notts County at home, where we were picking up, say, 1,700 fans, to all the way. Last game of the season was 7,500. And then in the game itself, we went 1-0 up. They got it back to 1-1. Hartlepool, who we were against last day of the season, if we matched their score or bettered it, we were safe, they were relegated. If they win and we lose or draw, they stay up, we go down. So I think there was 10 minutes to go in the game. Notts County scored, the game went 1 each. Then all of a sudden, with about 7 minutes to go, we hear Hartlepool have just scored a second, they're winning 2-1, we're drawn, we're relegated. So we hear all the fans kind of like ushering us forward. The manager brings on 2 strikers, so we're thinking, right, we just have to go route 1 all the time. And it got to the 89th minute. I was shouting on the sideline for me to go up front. Now, for me to go up front was never to score the goal. It was like to win a flick on or to be just a nuisance up there for someone to score. But the ball went out wide. David Pipe crossed it in with his left foot and the ball landed to me. I chested it and volleyed it in the goal bottom corner. And we ended up winning the game 2-1. And I'll always tell everybody this, that it was the first time that I ever cried for football, because the stress of what we went through as a team to kind of do the impossible, the emotion that I went through from not playing a single minute of football to playing 20 games at the end of that season in the same season and in the same league as Luton, almost proving a point to myself to go, you've still got it. Everything's going to be okay. To think that I just secured a contract for myself, like all the emotions just kind of burst out of me. And that moment kind of, again, 10 years later, has cemented me down in Newport history to kind of say the man who scored the goal to save the club. But leading on from that, like the career that I had at Newport, now that was a roller coaster in itself. Sometimes it was great and sometimes it wasn't. But the journey along the way to go from almost being relegated, then the next season we got to the 4th round of an FA Cup, we got a replay against Tottenham, we beat Leeds United in that same season. And then the season after that, we beat Leicester City, we beat Wrexham, we beat Middlesbrough, we play Manchester City in the 5th round of an FA Cup, and we made it to the final of a playoff final at Wembley. And for me to get to be captain of that side at that time, like we had so many captains in that change room. So for me to be the person that got a chance to lead that, again, it goes back to that whole captaincy. Like it was an honour to do that with such a group of players. And like I say, the memories that we got to achieve along that way. And then the next season after that, unfortunately, was the season that I retired, 3.5 years into my deal. That season that I retired during COVID. But everything that has led up to that was almost kind of like all those dreams that people think of, like you say, the cup upsets, the playing the big teams, the defying all odds and being the kind of the underdog story. And to be part of that fighting DNA of Newport, which, as I said, was me as a kid growing up, and I was that type of way. Like Newport was to me, I found me club again. Like from what Derby was for me, unfortunately with the circumstances, Newport was the same thing. I found me club again. So you have to go through all the other stuff to kind of go, now I found me club. And to be able to give everything to this place and still to this day to be here, like I owe everything to Newport, just as much as I do Derby for what they stuck by me with. Newport have done exactly the same, and to still be part of the club to this day is an honour of mine. And as I say, when I had to retire at 27, and obviously it was the second open heart surgery, like they stuck by me through a lot. So there is a lot that I do owe to this place. But to be given the honour of saying now the new club ambassador for Newport County was me, like I cherish that more than anything.
That's like literally a fairy tale story. Like you would only ever hear about this in a movie. Like guy has open heart surgery at 16 and somehow still ends up captaining a football league team and keeping them in the football league, getting to playoff finals, playing against football giants. But like you mentioned there, your career does get cut short at 27. And to anybody listening on face value, say that's the only part they listen to the whole episode, they would think it's a bit of a short career. It's not really much of a career. They would think that. Being everything you went through and obviously getting that news again about your heart, retiring at 27, do you still feel fulfilled in your football career?
Yeah, because I think when I got given the news at 16 and no year was guaranteed, and I had a heart scan at the end of every single season to see if I was allowed to play the next season, I played every season literally like it was my last. So that's why, like, the emotion that got thrown into everything, the highs and the lows, and why it affected me probably so much more with the injuries, was because I didn't know what was ever going to be me last year. So I got the fulfillment out of going, I never let myself down, that everything that was given to me or everything that I worked hard for, well, if this is the time for it to happen, I got 11 years longer than any hospital ever gave me. I think the only regret that I always say that I probably will hold above myself is the fact I never got to play senior international football. That was always something in mind where I think if I had an opportunity of doing that, I think that would have just seen me where I thought there's nothing more I could have wished for in my career, for how it was handed to me and how I dealt with it and what was given to me. But the old saying of kind of like, you do the best with the cards you get dealt. Like, I felt as though that's exactly what I'd done. I just never gave up on the dream of football. I gave it me all. And at the time when I had to retire, it was under other circumstances, obviously during COVID. So life went into lockdown and everything was just so strange. So when you're dealing with the open heart surgery there, that kind of takes the forefront of your mind. And the retirement kind of took a back step where you release a statement about it and you don't think many people will pay attention, because in your own mind, I wish I could have done so much more. I wasn't a Premier League player. I wasn't someone who went on and done all these amazing things and won a World Cup. Like, I was Mark O'Brien, a lad from Ballyfermot that has just had a football career. But the response that I had from it kind of surprised me, that it was on Sky Sports, it went on to BBC, it was all over ITV. Then all of a sudden I'm having all these texts, and then I'm getting these phone calls from past managers and people I've never played alongside. And it kind of made me think, I've made an impact on the game more than I actually even knew. And it kind of was like a warming feeling for me to kind of sit there and actually take it in, to go, I actually did okay. Like, it was the first time I could actually give myself credit, because when you're in football, or I would say even anything in life, you're always hard on yourself to kind of go, I always want more, I always need more. But you never sit there and actually think to yourself, I'm doing all right here. And that was the first time that I'd done it, that when I had that opportunity of receiving all those text messages and phone calls, it felt so nice. And when I was going in for the operation, it was obviously tough times, but this time around was so different to when I was 16, because I was feeling all the symptoms. I was feeling every last effect, from breathlessness, fatigue, dizzy spells. I was feeling the palpitations in my chest. Like, I'll never forget the evening that I first felt the valve go. Like, it was after spending a day out walking. I got back here, and in the evening, I just felt it sitting on the sofa behind me, and my neck was pulsing. Like, everything was just like, almost like you were getting hot flushes. My palms were going all sweaty. Like, everything just felt so off. And I started, and it was catching me breath, like, and I was coughing and I couldn't really breathe. Now, I didn't know what it was at the time. So you speak with the doctor and they're kind of saying, look, I need to go in for to have a scan, I get checked. And one thing leads to another, because obviously hospitals were packed at that stage. I went into the hospital, got the scan, and they said, Mark, look, your valve is leaking, and it's leaking very badly. And I remember there and then, my whole body just kind of went cold and I just felt numb. And I just burst into tears and thought, football's finished. And I'll never forget, like, I just couldn't stop crying, because even though it was always inevitable that it was going to happen, or there was going to be that one time I'd go back to a doctor's and they were going to say this, because when you get given a year to a maximum of 5 years and you end up getting 11, after those 5 years, you kind of take for granted all the good news you're getting given. And it's always like you just keep expecting it. And this one time that I didn't get it, you end up going into the hospital. And when you go into the hospital, no family are allowed in, nobody's allowed in. And I spent, I think in total, I spent about 7 weeks in hospital all by myself. I had the operation, but the lead up to the operation, they thought I had an infection in my valve, so they didn't know if they could operate straight away. So I had to wait 2 weeks. And then the night before my operation, I had to get blood tests and urine samples and all that to see if the infection was still there. And I remember the surgeon came into the room and I got moved onto the main ward. And when I got moved onto the main ward, the surgeon came in and basically said, he goes, Mark, look, your valve, he said, is hanging on, but he said it's hanging on very, very thinly. And he said, if that valve breaks off through the night and circulates your body and gets lodged in your brain, he said, you're dead. So he said, we need to keep a close eye on you. Now, they found me mum, who was in a living accommodation across the road from it, to say, we might need to come over to the hospital. It's not looking good for Mark. So I was being told I had less than 24 hours of living. So I obviously didn't sleep that night. Probably got about 20 minutes of sleep. I'm on the end of the phone to my mom saying everything's going to be fine. I mean, mom's trying to do the same to me, but like, what do you do in them situations? Like, you don't have anyone around you. So the doctor came in the next morning. Mark, you can have the operation. I'm bursting into tears again because it was like a change of perspective to kind of go, I was terrified of open heart surgery. Now I can't wait to have it because it's going to save me life. And when I went down, I had the operation, which took 7 hours. And then coming out of the operating theatre, my mum tells me that the doctor, when he spoke to her, said, like, look, the state his heart is in, I'm surprised he's still alive to this day. Like, he's lucky to be alive, but we've had a successful operation. Everything should be all right. And as you say, the whole process you go through again, which I remembered from 16, your tubes in your stomach, the ones in your neck, and you have to take them all out at different certain times. And then you're on the medications. But then this time around, they thought I had another infection, but I had inflammation in and around the aortic root that they replaced. So then that was another little bit of a complication. But in all of this, it was grinding me down, where this whole positive way and this whole positive steely mentality just wasted away. Like, I was a shell of myself with no confidence, and I was scared of my own shadow. And the reason, obviously, I can't play anymore is because of the metallic valve I've got in now that I could have took at 16 is what I've got now. So being on blood thinners, and your whole life changes. Like, everything changes. And even the way that I look at it now is that going through what I went through then taught me probably the biggest lessons that I'm probably the most grateful for at the age of 27, that it put life into perspective for me. This isn't just a career now. This is like, it put life into perspective to think nobody has a clue what's around the corner, and you don't know what is the final day. And you can either look at that and judge it on two different aspects of going, you let that terrify you, or you let that make you enjoy every last day that you've got, because why not? And I started off on that end of the scale to say, I'm terrified of my own shadow. I'm not leaving the door. I'm not getting out of bed. I'm having panic attacks every second day. I ended up being put on antidepressants while I was doing counseling. I'm reaching out to people, getting more counseling, and just struggling to think this can't be me for the rest of my life. And I could never get my head around the fact that this probably is going to be me for the rest of my life. And I was just crying all the time. And then, like you say, you just slowly start to build confidence back by stepping into it that little bit more, and then that little bit more, and you get an understanding of everything becomes a choice. Like, the choice of how I want to view this, the choice on how I want to feel, the choice on how I want to, like, progress through this. But to do it in the way that I done it that way, without distractions, and almost facing it and being in it and going through the panics and going through the depression and understanding it, has stood to me so much more now that, as I say, I don't mind being open and honest about these things because they're real. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit and say everything's wonderful. Mark's the hero and he's brilliant again. It's like, no, I go through struggles like everybody else, and I go through tough times like everybody else. But the difference of what I've learned for myself is that as life keeps moving, just like everybody else's, you have the two choices where you can either let you sink, or you swim with it and you get better and you find a way, and you just don't give up the belief that days will get better. And the thing is, I had the right people again around me. I had the right kind of support, but I never gave up on myself. I just kept that kind of going to go, okay, I'm going to try something different, and I'm going to do a bit more counseling. I'm going to be more open and honest. And I'm going to, 2 years after it, do a book. I'm going to come on people's podcasts. I just started to say yes to things, to where when football is there and your whole life is planned, you come out of football, you think your life's over. Whereas what I started to realize, life has only just started. And with me life, that is only just feeling as though it's just started. Saying yes to anything is all new opportunity. And that's why how I see things as I see things. And I kind of live for the moment of what things are. What my past is, I'll always appreciate. I can never change what has gone on. What my future might be, I don't have a single clue what it could be. But the opportunities that I say yes to now, or how I move forward now, will make all the difference. And that's why I enjoy life as I do. And it's given me that perspective on life, because I know what it's like to see the negative side. I know what it's like to go through the tough struggles. And I know what it's like to live in the tough struggles, where you're living in a day or you're surviving in a day. But now all of a sudden I feel as though I'm living in days. I'm not just surviving to kind of go, oh, thank God, another day is over, let's go again. and let's survive another day. It's almost like, no, I'm living every day and I'm enjoying every day, and whatever the next day might get, and the small things, as I say, I broke my life down into smaller things where I used to always focus on the bigger thing and be hard on myself. If I didn't achieve going out training, and if I didn't achieve exercise that day, and if I didn't do the right things that are the big things, my whole day is ruined. Whereas during counseling, during things, you simplify your life down to the simplest of things that could have been taken away from me, which is waking up in the morning. And the fact that I can wake up in the morning, my day can't get any worse. I'm happy that I've woken up. So being that happy about waking up, everything else is a bonus. So when it's seen that way, and everybody has the opportunity to do it, I'm not saying you need to go through open heart surgery to do it, but everybody has the opportunity to simplify your life to the best that you can simplify it to, and appreciate those small things, because the bigger thing will always happen. But if you set an expectation for the big thing and it doesn't, don't rule out all the little small things that helped you along the way to get to that one big thing, because it's those little small things that when you focus on them, the big thing doesn't even seem as big anymore. And they're the things that my life has come into now, and that's why I had to be the try and be the example to people's lives, to show that life can continue and you can become a better person even through the toughest of times.
Whenever I was prepping for you coming on, I was trying to find like videos of footballers who walked away from the game and explained how they felt and stuff. And one I found was Lee Hendry on some ITV show. I think it was called Harry's Heroes, and he talks with Vinnie Jones about whenever like he left the game and stuff. And whenever he was explaining it, it almost sounded like he was attending a funeral. And I went and googled just, is there any kind of link between bereavement and athletes walking away from the game? And I actually found someone's like, it must have been someone's coursework from someone's doing applied sports psychology, which anybody outside of Ireland and the UK doesn't know what applied in front of that word means. Pretty much a below level qualification. But these two people had teamed up on it, and they wrote about how an athlete's brain, when they leave their sport, goes into a state of actual bereavement and actual like healing after a death, but it's such a struggle for them because their brain can't find a body that is dead in front of them to see, the life has passed on, so they can start grieving. So it's almost like they stay in a stage of just loss. It's not even like a loss of identity at first. It's like a loss of life, but you're almost looking for where did the life end without realizing it's your career.